All right, so I'm going to start off here with showing you the YouTube site. This has all of the movies that we've recorded. We'll continue to grow this. Now, just to let you know, I think the reports webinars here, these did not have sound, so we're going to re-record them. But you can just go to youtube.com and type in AccuTrack webinar, and it will show the ones that we've already posted, and more to come there. Okay, also I want to show you here with the webinar sign-up form that we have changed this. So probably the people thought it was database cleanup. It might have been an earlier form here. But I've got, here we are on student view, and then I've got hidden features coming up, understanding local labs, a look under the hood, communications, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that takes us through January of next year. And then our intention is to then start at the top of the list. I'll re-record these and then repeat the webinars. Okay. So if you miss one, you can sign up for a later date, or you can go to YouTube and view them. Okay. So we'll get started here. And again, this is the student view webinar. And what I mean by that is the uses and functions of AccuTrack or AccuSQL from a student's perspective. I'm going to explore the various tasks that students can perform in AccuTrack, AccuSQL, how data is collected from the students, and then how data is sent to the students. I'm also going to discuss how some of the setup options, the various functions that the students perform are based on how you set up the system as an administrator. So you can present data in different ways to students based on how you set up the options. Okay? All right, so hopefully you'll see some features you haven't seen before, or some you might have had questions about. I'll kind of clarify those. Now I'm going to start off with the very basics, and then we'll work our way through my program here. And I'm going to sign as an administrator here real quick. Okay, the first thing I want to show you here is just this little checkbox at the bottom that said this station is an information-only station, if you haven't seen that. But think of it this way. You know, students may want to do things like view their appointments, schedule an appointment, sign up for a seminar, check out media, and various other things, but you don't want to make the station a sign-in station. If you check this box, then they can't sign into AccuTrack, but they can do various things through the student pad or the buttons on the main screen. So when I return to sign in here, I'll try a student sign in. You can say it says current mode is instruction or information only. So I sign in as a student, and it tells me just that. So it's not a sign-in station, but it's a station that can be dedicated to things just like I say, like appointments, like signing up for seminars. We have colleges that use it strictly as a media checkout station. So they don't sign into the station, but they have all the media behind them, and that terminal is set up strictly for checking out media. Okay, so that's how information only works. And I'll turn that back off. Okay, so that's a fairly simple one. The next thing I want to show you is also fairly simple. It's where you can turn the buttons on and off that show up on the main sign-in screen of AccuTrack. So I'm right here on sign-in screen, and then here's my buttons. Now, if you have an earlier 11 version, I think the buttons may be down here. But this, I can decide what buttons I want to show or not show. So, for instance, I don't want the student to be able to exit AccuSQL in this case. I can turn that off. I don't want them to see who else is in. I can turn that off. So when I return to the sign-in, the buttons that show will be down here. The buttons that don't show are just spots. Now, I had a request from someone to, can we move these buttons around? Well, the answer is no, not right now, but I think that's a good feature, and we're going to add that in. At the end of the presentation, I want to show you where you can go to the accu.uservoice website to vote on feature requests for current releases. Okay, so those are the main buttons you turn on and off, and again, I just went into my options sign-in screen. And right here, okay? All right, the next thing I'm going to show you here is we have a student and tutor pad that probably some of you have seen on the main screen, and that's right here. Okay, so in under sign-in screen, I have student and tutor pads. So these are the little buttons that show up next to the sign-in where you put the ID, and I can turn those on or off, and then if I turn them on, I can determine what options I want to give people. So for instance, I'll say, well, I don't want to show my tutor pad, but what I'm going to do is show my student pad, and then I can determine what buttons will be available once they sign into the student pad. So for instance, let's say I turn off seminars, messaging, and change password, for instance. So when I go back to the sign-in screen, now I have my student pad button right here, and what the student will do is sign in. Now there is a password associated with that. By default, I believe that the password is the same as the ID. You can change that, and I'll show you where. You can make it by default to be the same as ID or to be the lowercase student's last name. The other thing you can do is import password field. So if you have an import file with a password, now be a little careful with that, I guess, with exchanging passwords between applications, but you can if you want to. So I'm going to log in with the student ID, and you can see the ones that I turned off are grayed out on my student pad. So these are the ones that I can pick, or the ones that are lit up, things like running reports, surveys, etc., etc., etc. So I'm going to explore how each of these work. Now let me go back and turn them all on so we can get to them. Okay, so here I am. I'm a student coming into the center, and remember, I can sign in here because it's not an information-only station. So I can sign in because I want to get help with tutoring or advising or whatever it may be. But I can use my student pad to do various things in AccuTrack without signing in. Okay, so let's look through these. The first one is reports. Now if I open reports, any of you who are admins know you go in and you have lots of reports. But if I log in as a student, well, it's very limited. Actually, it's only limited to two things. I can look at my scheduled appointments. I can look at my student attendance. Now up here you see a checkbox that has students, and I can't uncheck that. So it's only for Dan Arlington, in this case, the student that I signed in with. And I can look at my scheduled appointments. So these are all Dan Arlington appointments, which is me. And I can look at my attendance. Okay? All right, so close and go back. It'll return back to my pad. The next one we have here is survey. Now, you would have to set up the survey. And unfortunately, I don't have one set up, but any of you, I can go back and do that after the fact. Sorry about that, I missed that one. But a survey is just where you build a form that I think I've shown even in other webinars, but a form where you collect information from students. So you have the option of displaying the survey at sign-in, at sign-out, and or on the student pad. Okay? Same with a feedback survey. Now, some of you have seen probably these pop up when a student signs out, so I can collect information about their experience with the tutor. I can collect information about their experience at the center, and I can make these display either when the student signs out, or I can make them display only from the student pad. Okay? So I've got my two feedback surveys here running from the student pad. And let me log in real quick as admin to show you how that works. And again, in my setup options, almost all of this is in setup options. But here I have feedback right here. I click on my feedback, and you can see I can display feedback at sign out, at sign in, or only in the student pad, which is what I have selected in this case. Okay. Okay, next up I have appointments. So if I click on my appointments button, I can either create a new appointment or I can view or cancel an appointment. Okay, and remember everything I'm doing here is as the student. So let's schedule a new appointment. And it takes me to my appointment wizard. Okay, and it knows I'm Dan Arlington here at the top. and then I just go through what I want help with. So anatomy and physiology, I want to view all my tutors. I want it on a Wednesday or Thursday, let's say. So this shows my schedule, but let's say I want to pick, I don't know, Cindy, for instance. And, you know, a good idea, and I've seen a lot of schools that have done this, is, you know, this is not difficult. We've tried to make things like Appointment Wizard. This is probably the most complex thing a student is going to need to do. But even put up some little tutorials or send them, you know, how-tos or something like that on how to use Appointment Wizard is helpful. I mean, I feel it's pretty straightforward, but I don't know, you guys could tell me probably better if students get lost in here or not. So I picked my period, and I did that a little quickly. Let me go back. So I've said I just want to see Cindy Bright's schedule. I can change my period. I can look at this week, this month, whatever. Okay, so once I've done that, then I can go do my actual appointment. So let's say I want an appointment at 2 o'clock on the 10th with Cindy. And I can add a note. And you can see that's a group appointment, which means that more than one person can schedule that block of time. I could print a slip. I can turn this on or off too. And it's done. So now it says, would you like to schedule another? Well, no, I don't. Okay, so once I've done that, well, I can go in as a student now and view my appointments. And here we go. I have two. I have the one I just scheduled with Cindy, and I have another advanced database one with Morgan Freeman at 4, okay, on the same day. Okay, now seminars. What that is a special one-time event in your center. So, you know, you maybe put up a sign or some advertising saying, you know, here we are, you know, we've got a Juggling Made Easy seminar coming up here on the 12th from 11 to 12. Would you like to sign up? Click your seminar button. And again, going back, I can sign up from down here too, but I'm showing it from my student pad. So I'll say, sure, I want to sign up. It already knows who I am. I register. My seat count goes from 16 to 15, and I'm done. Okay. Media checkouts, that's where you check out loan materials. So if I want to do that as a student, again, I would click Media Checkouts. Okay, so here I am, and you can see I've got something here that's in red. Well, that indicates to me that that's late. Okay, and remember, you can send out late media reminders to your students. That's just a boilerplate email that goes out showing the loaned material, when it was due back, the student, etc. Okay, and you set that up in something called scheduled tasks, which I'm going to show you in a minute. But this is pretty straightforward. I can look at available media, media that's already out, what I have that's late, or everything. So well, let's see what's available. All right, so I'll check out a nurse's pocket guide, for instance. And when I check out, it's going to tell me media checked out. I can print a slip out or not. I'll say no. And it's done. So now I, as the person, you know, the student would be there checking out the media, I'd go get the guide and hand it to the student, and it would start tracking the rules that I set up about media. Okay? And if I look for what's out, well, sure enough, I have my Nurse's Pocket Guide, and I have my College Algebra 6th edition, which is late. So I'm going to do that, and then I want to check that one in. So now it's checked in, it's done, I can see what's out, what's available, etc. So that's how simple it is to check out media. Okay? I turned Messaging Center off, which I can turn back on, or I can access it from down here. Now, Messaging Center is a way to send messages to students and or tutors in AccuTrack or via email. You have options to say a student can message another student or not. You can say a student can only message a tutor. So you have options that way. Okay. Next is Profile, and I'm going to show you how you can turn on Update Profile for all of your student records. But this opens up the Modify Student screen where the student can then update their information. Okay? So here I've got first, last, email, and I can change my profile fields. Remember, I can turn these on or off. I can make them required or not, etc. Okay? All right, change password. Well, that's pretty straightforward. Whatever it is, you enter it and then enter the new one. And then I exit my student pad. Okay? And any questions on that? Pretty straightforward. And again, I've done all of those things and I haven't signed into the center at all. So what you could do, if you want, say, an information-only station, you could check that box and then make the student pad button available, and then the student could do all the things I just did, from that station without making it a sign-in. Okay. All right. Next, I'm going to show you how I can lock various things in AccuTrack. Now, as you've seen, if you have it set up this way, a student would sign in and they would pick a category and then see the particular activities that are available underneath it. They would pick the activity, and then it would pop open, if we wanted it to, the tutor selection screen. They would pick their tutor, then they would go into the center. Okay. Now, let's say, for instance, that I have, the example I'm going to use is I have a debate team coming in. I want to track that they're coming into my center, but I don't want each and every one of them to have to do, select category, whatever it may be, activity, debate, tutor, not applicable, etc. So I can lock that. Now I have a couple of options here. As a tutor, I can do a class sign-in. So that would be, for instance, I know that I've got 15 people from my college algebra class that are coming in for tutoring, and I'm going to have a group session as a tutor. I can sign that whole class in and then sign them out. But that's a little different than actually locking the station. So if I go here to my options, activity screen, sign-in screen. Okay, here I've got the lock the selection on sign-in for. Okay, so it says implicitly it knows the category based on the activity I pick. So here I have an activity called debate. I've got instructor not applicable, and let's say I can make a particular tutor here. How about lab assistant, for instance. Okay, so now that I've locked those various things, when I sign in as a student here, and I'm going to do a sign-in, well, as you can see now, I've got category is locked to pick a course. That's what I call my category. Service is locked to debate. I didn't lock the service type, but I locked the instructor. Okay, so the student can't pick anything but what I lock. Okay, so that could be handy for some of you. Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay, now we saw that update profile. That was from the student pad when I clicked the button, but like I said before, I can make that available for all students, and I'll show you how that works. Now this one is not real intuitive to find, but if I go to Setup, Options, here I've got Other. Now why we put it there, I guess that's sort of the catch-all area, but here in Other, so Setup, Options, Other, right at the top I have Student Profile Update, Update Profile On, Update Profile Off. So if I turn that on, each time the student signs in, the first time after I click the Update On, it's going to present that Please Update Your Information, the Modify Student screen. They're going to pick their information, then continue and go about their normal sign-in. And again, that happens once per student after I turn the button on. Okay, so we'll go ahead and turn that on. And save that. Okay, now I'll return to my sign-in and sign in with the student ID here. And as you can see, it says, please update your information. Now I have some required fields, the ones with the little red dot. So if I try to go next here, well, I can't do that. It's going to force me to put the information that's required. And again, you see profile field 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 3 is hidden. I said don't show for that one. So I can turn on or off as many of these as I want. Okay? So maybe you only want to collect two pieces of information here, well, turn the other 8 off, and they won't ever show up to the student. So I sign in, and there you go. I'm locked again, so it's kept my locked information, and then I would go about my sign-in. Okay? I'm going to go unlock it because I might want to pick some other things here. So I can just unlock those. And I can leave these here. If I want to turn something on and off, it'll keep it. So if I want to turn debate on and off, it'll say that. If I click on the dots here, I can do select none, and it'll completely clear my fields. Okay. So that's kind of handy if you know you're going to turn one on and off, lock one over and over again. Okay. All right, so update profile once per student. Now, if I'm tired of doing that, well, there's that off button. It's just an on or off setting. So if I turn it off, then the students won't get it anymore. Okay. And I can turn this on or off as much as I want. Okay. Now, that leads me into my next topic, which is allowing students to enter themselves into the system, which is kind of a dangerous proposal anyway, because as some of you may know, a student may just enter it whatever in order to get past the system. But I have other colleges that, for one reason or another, can't get a student import file, and really their only option is to allow the students to enter themselves. Okay, now we have that options. We have a little control with that though. So right here in my setup options, I've got new student. Okay, so I can allow or disallow. If I allow, how this works is when it finds an ID, an entered ID that does not match either a student or a tutor or an admin for that matter in the system, then it will bring open the new student screen and the student will enter their information. It will automatically retain that ID. Okay, so I can say, well, I want to show or not show various things. And there's my email. Well, I'm going to show and make that required. I can pre-fill that with my, college.edu or whatever this may be to make it easier for the student. I can collect address, show it, require it, et cetera, et cetera. Now I can pre-populate my state field here if I want to. I can pre-populate a city if I want to. I can have an additional date field, so this doesn't have to say birth date. It can say whatever date you may want to collect. Okay, and if I want to, for a little added protection, well, I can allow new students to enter themselves, but they have to enter a password to get to the screen. So we'll call it new. And if I want to, as an audio prompt, so I'm off doing something and I want to know when a new student signs in, I can play a little sound for that. Okay, so I've turned that on, and then hopefully I'll enter an ID here that's not in the system. Okay, so there's my authorization. I'll type in my password. And now it pops open my new student screen. You notice it has the ID. I can't continue until I do the required fields. And there's my pre-populated email, my required profile fields, and now I'm good. So I sign in and I go about my normal business. Okay. Now we're going to talk about this one in a minute. But now I'm signed in. Okay? So what I've done there is allow the new student, but I've password protected the new student screen, and then I've determined what I want to show or not show in there. Now just very briefly, the profile fields, the 10 fields, again, if I go to Setup, Student Setup Profile, okay, here's where I determine what those things are. So you can see item 3, if I click on that, will show is not checked. The other 9 are, but then I can say, well, I don't want to show age group, for instance. I can turn that off. Okay, I can turn everyone off, but keep 2, however you want to set that up. Okay, so that's show, not show. Now the other thing is the ones that have the red dot are required. So I think favorite color was one. So right here, answer required. So that's how you can force an answer. Okay. All right. Let's see here. So we've talked about how you can make required fields in the new student screen with the various, address, email, I think it was city, state, any of those that are available here in options, new student. Here's where you can turn them on or off or make them required or not. So any of these fields you can make required or not. And again, back in the setup, student setup profile, here's where I show or don't show the profile fields I collect information about, and I make them required or not. Okay. Okay, next I'm going to talk about the intake system and how that works. Now, if you aren't familiar with it, excuse me, the intake system basically puts the student in a list or a queue. They sign into the center for help, but they don't go walk off on their merry way and get the help. They get put in a line, and then the intake system administrator then signs them in when the tutor is ready to see them. Now, by the way, you can put AccuTrack on the tutor stations if they have their own PCs or laptops there, and then the student can sign in the tutor from the intake system once the student sits down with them. So I have the option, and by the way, that tutor would only see the students who picked him if I make it that way. Okay, I can say, well, tutors can see all other tutors, students waiting to see any tutor, excuse me, or they only would see the students that are waiting to see them.
Oh, I thought you were on like a conference call. Are you listening to a message?
No, I'm actually trying to listen.
Okay, so again, I'm now going to turn on the intake system, and I'm going to mute everybody here. 1 second. Okay, and it's just as simple as going into my options. I'm going to go back again, but I'm going to go Setup, Options, and right here I'm going to put on Intake System. Okay. And here I can say, well, tutors can see and sign in students waiting for other tutors or not. Okay? So that's how I do the intake system from the tutor perspective. And the tutor, when they sign in, remember they get the tutor pad, well, they have their intake system. I think it's people waiting in line. I can't remember exactly the terminology there, but that's their own intake system. Okay, so when I turn that on, let's go sign in again now as a student again. So now I sign in, I pick my activity. I pick my tutor. I sign in. And now I've got this SMS, which is AccuTrack 12, but I could send a text message if I wanted to. And it now says, you are now in line. Please remain in the area until your name is called. So now I'm not signed in, I'm waiting. So I'm sitting off to the side waiting for my turn, and I can look at the intake system here with the button on, and it says that, well, poor Ron Harrison has been waiting to see Morgan Freeman from Anatomy and Physiology for 98 minutes. So it's going to show how long he's been waiting. And then it shows my tutors who are signed in. So Liz Bates is free with nobody, Cindy's free, none of my other staff members are here, except Morgan, and Morgan Freeman is busy with one student. Okay. Now, Ron Harrison in this case picked Morgan Freeman, but I'm going to say, well, you know what, I'm sorry to show you this because I'm going to actually sign the student in from the intake system. The student would never be able to do that. This is a view only for the student. So Ron can go see how long he's been waiting to see Morgan, but now I'm going to do an admin, and I can do that right here. So when I do that, it lights my buttons up, and then I'm going to sign Ron Harrison in with Cindy Bright because I don't want him to wait any longer. So when I do that, it's going to pop open a little message and say, well, basically it says the student picked Morgan. Do you want to sign in with Morgan or do you want to sign in with Cindy? Well, I'll say, no, I want to sign in with Cindy. And sure, you can report the visit. So now Ron's gone, and it's waiting for, or Mike is waiting, I should say, to see somebody else. Okay. But again, the student signs in. The student doesn't have to do anything with intake system. They sign in, and it gives them the message saying you're waiting in line. Please wait until your name is called, or please wait until you receive a text message on your cell phone saying we're ready to see you. Okay. Okay, next I'm going to show you another feature that's not intake system. Think of intake system as everybody signs in and then they wait in line until their name is called, or somebody signs them in with the tutor, or the tutor signs them in, him or herself, and they're removed from the intake system. Okay. Now we have another feature here that we call activity waiting list, okay, and that's a little bit different. Let's see here. So let me find the setup for that. Kind of lost here. I don't know why is that grayed out. Let's see. Oh, right here. I'm sorry. Enable activity waiting list. And you guys can probably relate to where the heck is that screen, because we have things all over the place. And just to let you know that we're working on a redesign of how these things are grouped and how the menu options appear. So a lot of this is not very intuitive. You know, go to Other to turn on Update Profile, for instance. But I think we're going to do a reorg of how all of these are laid out. So that'll make life easier for all of us. Okay, but what I've done here is enabled activity waiting list feature, and I can show a button on the main screen if I want to. But I want to explain how this works. Okay, intake system puts everybody in a queue. Activity waiting list, I can put people in a queue based on whatever particular activity they select. Okay, and I do that in my activity screen. So setup, student setup, activities. Okay, and this is my activity list. So let's say, for instance, that I only have a limited number of people that can help, or with applied psychology in this case. Okay, so I don't want that tutor to have 15 students with them signing in. I really only want that tutor to have 2 at a time for applied psychology. Okay, and I do that right in this max field. Okay, and max is not that intuitive either, but that's the maximum number of students that can be in that activity at any one given time. Okay, so I'm going to say max 2, and again, applied psychology, and let's sign in. Here comes student 1, and I've got the old update information going, and I'm going to sign them in for applied psychology, and there's number 1. Okay, here comes student number 2. Update information again, because this is the first sign-in for each of these. Oh, and it's making me do email. Okay. And I'm going to pick applied psychology. And okay, that indicates to me that I already had a person, because I was playing with this before our meeting, but I'd probably signed somebody else in to applied psychology, and I can verify that. But what this is telling me is there are 2 students currently signed in to applied psychology. Sorry, you're going to have to wait till one of them signs out before you can go in. So I'll say, well, and it says currently there is no student waiting for this activity. It would tell me if there were 3 students or 4 students. So I may want to come back later if there's a lot of people waiting for it. Okay? And if I want to, I can do the SMS messaging, text messaging again. Now it says I'm in line. Please remain in the area until your name is called. Okay? So, oops, I'm not a new student. Let me hear that again. Now again, I can display activity waiting list right here, but I don't have it turned on, so I'll go in as admin. And another one that is really not intuitive to get to, but you just have to know where it is. It's in setup, in setup, and then edit sign-in logs, student. Okay, let's do that one more time. Edit sign-in logs, student, and then right down here, activities waiting list. Okay? Now why we put it there, I couldn't tell you, but that's where it resides. So if I click on that, it's going to show me, and sure enough, I do have people waiting. I have 2 seats available for advanced database. So advanced database is good, right? I'll sign Dan Arlington now for advanced database. And remember, I'm an admin, and I'm determining when these seats are available. I can go look, and it's going to sign him in. Now I have Mickey D is waiting for applied psychology, but there are no seats available. So let's go take a look at who signed in. And let's see, I don't know if this is applied psychology or not. I'm trying to figure out where I would find that. Well, I'd have to look at that one. I'm not sure exactly where I find out who's I know. I can look at who's in. So let's look at who's in and find out. And sure enough, Esmundo is in and Jerry is in. They're both in for applied psychology. So Esmundo and Jerry, if we sign them out, or one of them, right? I only need to sign out one of them. Now I have a seat available for applied psychology, and I go back to my activity waiting list, and it made a liar out of me. Okay. Now I'm not exactly sure what I've done wrong there. Let's try. Oh, you know what? It may be I gave him an hour, and his hour is not up. That's what it is. He hasn't signed out yet because he has to wait an hour before it signs him out. So let's try that now. I think that probably took care of it. Yep, so there you go. Mickey D, he's got one seat available out of my 2 for applied psychology. I click it, and I sign him in. Now there are no seats available for applied psychology, and we go through the whole process again. So when a student signs out, either themselves or in this case I did a manual sign out, then it frees the seat up. Okay? So intake system for all activities, activity waiting list if you would like to assign a number of seats on a per activity basis. Okay? And if you guys want to set that up and try to use it and you get confused or you have questions about it, just give me a call back here or an email. It's support@AccuTrack.org, and I'm more than happy to help you with it. Okay? All right. Now we've talked about appointment scheduling in AccuTrack. That's that appointment wizard that I went through from my student pad. But again, I'm going to show you from the AccuSQL, the web-based piece. So I've got right here my AccuSQL. Now I can pick different databases here. So I'm going to say, well, I'm using David 12 Test, which happens to be the same database I'm using here in my AccuSQL. But I'm going to schedule an appointment. Think of it, it's just like Appointment Wizard, but it runs in the web instead of running in AccuSQL. So I'll log in here because I want to schedule an appointment. Okay, and here's my appointments. And remember that view or cancel that we saw from the student pad? Well, this is the same sort of thing. I can create a new one or view my existing. Here's my category. Well, there's my pick a course. And there's my classes. So I want to sign into biology, let's say. And if I click on my tutors, it shows their various schedules. So I'll say, well, I think I'll have an appointment with Cindy Bright. Oh, how about at 2:30 on the 10th? And I want it for, let's say, an hour. And at group appointment, I can't change that because I have my settings back in AccuSQL say only allow group appointments. So I sign it in. It's recorded successfully. And that was Cindy Bright with Mickey D. So just that quick, if I go back and look at my appointments, view cancel, for instance. Now I've got Mickey D with Cindy Bright for Biology 1. So that's the one I just created. So just right in real time, it's going to update my AccuSQL database with whatever appointments I'm scheduling in the web-based piece here. Okay? Just a different way of going about the same thing. All right. Let's see. Okay, next is an important item is appointment no-shows and cancellations. Now if I go to my setup options here, I can look at my appointment restrictions. Okay, and I have certain rules here about my appointments. Now, here I can say, well, it has to be through tutoring request screen. I haven't even talked about that one. I wouldn't sweat it. Only allow registered students to schedule appointments, so they have to be registered for a course in order to schedule an appointment in that course. But these are the main ones I want to show you. This freeze new appointments if no-shows exceed, freeze new appointments if cancellations exceed. Okay, so if let me change one other thing here just to show you how this works. Okay, right here, now I'm kind of combining my restrictions with what I've got in my appointments set up. So I want to show you this no-show settings. Accept a visit as an appointment entry if sign-in time is within 20 minutes before or 10 minutes after the appointment start time. Okay, so that means the student can be 20 minutes early or 10 minutes late, and it still counts as an appointment. If they're 21 minutes early or 11 minutes late, then it's going to count that as a no-show. Okay, and again, if my no-shows exceed 3, then the student won't be able to schedule another appointment. Okay, and that sometimes happens when you set these rules. Now, cancellations work the same way. A student has the capacity to go in and cancel an appointment, but then I can say, well, if they cancel more than 4 of them, then I'm not going to let them make any more appointments. Okay. Now, back to what I was talking about, the no-shows and cancellations. This is from my appointment screen as an admin here. So then let's look at no-shows, for instance. And remember, 3 you lock out, I think. But I've got Jim Hendricks here, Ron Harrison, Mesha, and Tom Phillips. All have not shown up for appointments. So Jim, in this case, would not be able to schedule another one because he's not shown up 3 times. But I can reset the clock for him, so to speak, by voiding those no-shows. So if I pick, let's say I want to clear Jim's record here, well, I can click those and then I void those no-shows, and they're removed and his clock is reset. He's got 3 now that he can not show up for. Okay, so that's how I void those. Now I can go from no-show to cancellation if I want to. I can change that status. So the student really didn't fail to show up. They canceled the appointment. They called you. So I would convert a no-show to a cancellation after the fact. Now that would count against them as a cancellation. I'd like to revise that. That would count against them as a cancellation if I do a cancel by student here. Okay? If I cancel by admin or I cancel by tutor, then it's not going to count against them as a cancellation. Okay? And to void my cancellations, it's very much like voiding my no-shows. I go to my cancellations, and I don't have any from the 9th to the 16th, but let's say, oh, how about this year? I bet I have some. Well, maybe I don't. How about all? Oh, yeah, I've got plenty for all. But you can see these are my cancellations, and again, I can go void cancellations. So, oh, Evelyn here, you know, she didn't really cancel, or I want to reset her clock. Now I have 2 options here, right? I can void the cancellations, or I can bump up the number of allowed cancellations in my restriction settings. Okay? But if you get a message where a student says, I don't recall exactly what that message is, I think it says you exceeded the maximum number of no-shows, please see a system administrator, or you have exceeded the maximum number of cancellations. So that's what will happen. If a student tells you they're getting that, well, the first place you want to go is to go void their no-shows or void their cancellations. Okay? All right. Now, appointment reminders. Talk about that real briefly. And I'm talking about that because, well, the student can get an appointment reminder. So I can say send appointment email reminders X number of hours in advance. So if they make the appointment at 8 o'clock, let's say Thursday, well, at 8 o'clock on Wednesday, they'll get a reminder of their upcoming appointment. Okay? And then here's the template that you can use for that. Make it whatever you want to say. Okay? And here's my no-show notification. If I want to put that, I can warn the student that you have, a scheduled appointment that you've missed. It'll show them the appointment details. They'll get that email, so they'll certainly know that they didn't show up, and then my restrictions would kick in, right? Okay. Now, I'm going to show you where we schedule various emails. Okay, things like appointment no-shows. Obviously I would have to know if they didn't show up, and then I would send the email. And I do that right in my general, and I have some scheduled tasks right here, okay? And this tells me when these various jobs run, okay, like appointment reminders, no-show reminders, There's my late media emails, seminar reminders, etc. Now these are just emails that go out to the student based on the event. So let's say, for instance, I want to look at my appointment reminders when those jobs run. Okay. Now the way this screen is set up is, let's go back and I'll move everything over. I'll just select none. But what I'm saying here is which days of the month, which months of the year, and which hours of the day do I want these jobs to run. Okay, so I'll say, well, every day, every month, every other hour, let's say. So I can drag these down and set them just the way I want. So every other hour. Now the way these jobs run is they run at the top of the hour. Okay, and I can select all. So for instance, appointment reminder, well, it's going to go out 24 hours in advance. So at the top of the hour, it'll send an appointment reminder to all the students that have scheduled that appointment 24 hours from now, or from when the job ran. Okay. Same with media. It knows that the media is late. Once it finds that media is late, the next hour that comes along, so the media is late at 8 a.m. on Monday, well, at night, let's say it's late then, well, it has to wait an hour to run the job. So an hour after that, it's going to run that job saying, hey, you have a late, handbook or whatever it may be. Okay, so here's how you set those jobs. And if you're not sure about it, well, it doesn't hurt a thing to let them run all the time, because what it's going to do if it doesn't have a job, it'll just say, oh, nothing to do this hour, and then it waits for the next hour. Okay? All right. Let's see here. We've talked about media checkouts. I don't think I need to worry about that one again. Late media reminders, that's just that email that's sent out. And remember, you can do that from your scheduled tasks. And then I determine when I want it to run, all the time in this case. Okay, now let's talk about seminar registration. Now, seminar registration can happen from the student pad, or it can happen from a button here that I've turned on. Now, I think I already did it from the student pad. So I can go log in with my student ID. And it says, well, I'm, let's see, registered for Juggling Made Easy, but I'm not registered for Money Sense for Grads. So if I wanted to register for that, I could do this right here as a student, and it would reduce my seat count, and it would register me. It even sends a seminar registration email out. Okay, but I can also do that through AccuSQL. This is a new feature here. So web-based, I register for a seminar without having to walk all the way over to the tutoring center, for instance. I can go do that, and it shows me what's available, and it shows me what I'm registered for. Okay, so if I want to register for one, well, it's pretty easy. I just click it and register. Okay, and then let's see how quick it updated that. If I go look at my seminar signups here, and now I'm, it didn't register Money for Grads yet, so I guess it made a liar out of me. So why that is, I'm not sure. Maybe it has to wait a little while to update the database. But trust me, it works because I registered for the other one here, so it certainly does. It might be a little lag time there. I'm not sure. Okay, so that's how I sign up for a seminar via AccuTrack, or I sign up for a seminar via AccuSQL. As long as I'm pointing to the same database, then they'll communicate back and forth that way. Okay. Okay, now let's talk about this new feature, which is email visits to instructor. Now, you may have seen during the webinar, it kept popping up a box, say, would you like to email this visit to instructor, report this visit to instructor, I think it was. Okay, that's right here in my options. Now, an instructor, again, we think of as a professor that teaches a class. Okay, and in order to turn this feature on, well, there's one thing I need to have is instructors. Okay, so here's Woody Allen, for instance. You need an active email for that instructor because you're going to be emailing a report to him. Okay, and remember, instructors are assigned to activities. So, for instance, if I say advanced database, well, I have 3 professors that teach my advanced database course in this case, Woody Allen, James Cameron, and Wendy Holland. Okay, so when I sign in as a student here, and I've got a little every other time on sign-in survey there, and I'm updating my information. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to pick a particular course. I forgot which one I just said. This one's fine, Advanced C++, because my instructor here is Woody Allen. Now remember, the professor that teaches the course. So then I'm going to pick Woody Allen. And it says, Joel, do you want to sign in? Sure. And then it says, in just a second here, can we report this visit to your instructor? Okay, so it knows that I picked Woody Allen, and then it's saying, and you can say you don't even want to show this box. It'll just send the report or add that report for the instructor. But I'll say, yeah, I'll allow it or disallow it. And what am I really saying here? Well, let's go back to our options, and it'll make sense. So here's my set schedule for instructor's attendance report. So I already know which instructor the student is picking for that activity. But then I can say, well, I want to send an email out to every one of those instructors, whichever days of the week, at whatever time, for whatever period of time, for whatever report period. Okay, so it knows those emails from the instructor, and I can send this out to, if I have 30 different instructors, I schedule it all from this one screen. Okay, so that's kind of a handy thing. And especially if you're using instructor selection, this is great. Okay? So that's how that works. And here's my box that I say, well, ask them or don't ask them. Okay? And if I don't set a schedule, well, you know, it's not going to do a thing. Okay, so that's sending out instructor reports. And that report, by the way, I can look at that report. It's right here. And it's a new report we added. And it's attendance by instructor. So this is the report I'm going to send out, but I'm going to send it out for that particular instructor. So you can see I have Woody Allen here. And this is the report Woody Allen would get. Now I'm not, yeah, see, now I've got George Lucas. Well, he wouldn't see George Lucas or Tutoring Learning Center, etc. It would only be for the people that have signed in with Woody Allen. Okay, but that's what the report's going to look like. Okay, next up, and I've got about 4 minutes. I think I'm going to make it here. Next up, let's talk about Messaging Center. And from a student perspective, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to do my student pad. Oh, here's my Messaging Center. I'll just do it from the main window here. Okay, and this is a way for me to communicate to various people. Now, you see how it says available tutors at the top? Well, I have a setting back in AccuTrack in my options, excuse me, that says allow students to message other students. I don't have that checked, so I'm only going to enable students to message tutors in this case. I can send a message via AccuSQL, so when the tutor signs in, the message would pop up and show whatever I have here, or I can email that, okay? And I can either send to a particular lab. I have lots of different things I can filter on here. So this shows, well, this is only the tutors that teach advanced algebra in this case, or only the tutors that teach, I shouldn't say teach, that help students with, right? That help them with applied psychology. And I want to send something to Morgan Freeman. I'll do it via AccuSQL. And I send the message. It's sent. Well, and just to show you how that works, now it could be emailed obviously just as easily, but if I sign in as a tutor, Morgan Freeman in this case, I was already logged in, so let's log out and back in. And there's my message. So this is via the AccuSQL method, and then I could email this as well. Okay, so I can delete it or keep it, fine. And then I go on my merry way, and I log in as a tutor, right? So I log in for my time, whatever, okay? Okay, so I know we went quickly here, but I did remember this time to record this, so you'll be able to see it again, and we should have audio as well. Now, the other thing I want to show you here is lots of these things like, oh, I don't know, activity waiting list or intake system, any number of these things we added to the software based on user requests. So a college needed that activity waiting list, so we evaluated it and figured it was worthwhile, so we added it. Okay, and again, how do you add your own thing? Well, right here it's Accu accu.uservoice.com, right here, accu.uservoice.com. I go there, and you each get 10 votes, but you get 10 votes for every one of the people that are in your center. So if you have, I don't know, 4 or 5 people working in the tutoring center, well, that's 40 or 50 votes. So you can see I've already got a few things, a few votes coming in on various things. Add a lab filter on session log screen. So we're starting to collect some votes. Now over here are just some categories that we added by ourselves, but right here I could do new. So I can pick new, and if I don't see it already listed, I can add my own. So this is a great way for you to add feature requests, and it's a great way for us to understand what you want in the software for releases in the future. Okay, so I would ask you all to come out and do this. It's going to be good for all of us. Okay, and let me see if I have any questions. I think that you're off mute. Let me check that. Yeah, everyone should be off mute, so you can either ask me questions or I can look here in the chat window. Anybody have anything?
I have 2 questions about which version, like some of the features that are maybe version specific. Like, is that locks thing that you were talking about, is that available for the 11?
I'm sorry, what was it again? The
locks feature that you were talking about in the beginning when you were doing the options for the page, something about the lock thing. We have version 11. Is that in version 11? Is it just someplace else?
That actually is not in version 11. That's a version 12 feature. We just added that for the new 12 release.
Okay, and then I guess, can you, for the tutor photos, is that also just for the new release?
No, tutor photos is in 11.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I can show you how to upload those.
Okay. Okay. Well, maybe later, because I don't want to hog the whole thing. But I also had one more question about the messaging center. Do you have any examples of what the end user experience is like? Like, what does the text message look like, or the email look like? And then also, too, for example, if somebody messages, like, say, their tutor, will they only be able to access those messages if they log into AccuTrack, or will they actually get them in their real email address?
It would send to their real email if you picked that. Yeah, if you picked email instead. And it would just look, just like a normal email message, really. I don't know if I've got it set up. We'll try it here. Let me go look.
Can you make it to where any messages sent back and forth go to their email and aren't solely contained within AccuTrack?
Yeah, that's correct. So if I go to Messaging Center, now I'm logged in as an admin, so I have a little more power. Remember, I was doing it from a student perspective, but here as an admin, I have the capacity to send it via AccuSQL, via email, via both, or send a text message. So I can do any of those things. I think in 11, I can't do a text message, but I can do the rest of these. So, and I can pick it based on a particular group of students if I've set it up that way. I can do multiple recipients here. So a student would only be able to email or message one tutor. As an admin, well, I can message everybody in my database if I want to. So, for instance, I want to send it to, Tutors, let's say, and I'll pick Morgan Freeman. Let's see, do I have to apply a filter? Let's see here. Yeah, so now it's Morgan Freeman. All right, let's try that, and we'll say via email. I think I've got my email set up on this. Nah. Okay, let's see real quick. Windows Mail. I guess this is set up. We'll find out.
Okay. In the past, I've had some problems with and it's probably something I did wrong, but I can't figure out exactly what I did wrong, where it was sending them too many reminders.
Yeah.
And inappropriate reminders, and I'm really nervous about using this feature again because I had so many people be like, hey, why is AccuTrack blowing up my email or my phone or whatever?
Yeah, I remember that. I think that was in AccuTrack 10. I don't know if it was in 11, but I remember it from 10, yeah, where it's like my student got, I don't know, 8 reminder emails going out. And you're right, that was a bug in the software that we found and fixed. So, but yeah, that was kind of ugly.
Okay, but it shouldn't, like, if I've been updating my software appropriately, it shouldn't be a problem anymore then?
Well, it shouldn't be a problem if you're on, I think 11.0.6 is the latest. Now, if you want to test that, and I can test it for you, I'm sure that that's resolved. Though I'll go back and look at the bug fixes. But I could set it up with one record in there just to make sure that it's not sending multiples. But
okay.
Yeah.
Then I had I have a lot of questions, I guess. But for the media checkout, is there a way that you can customize the printout so it basically ends up being almost like a mini contract between you and the media checkout student?
I think it's sort of a pat email at this point, and you mean the slip, right? Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Let me check that.
Because it would be ideal if you could make it clear to them, like, if you don't bring this back, then, we're going to take your right hand or your firstborn child or something.
Yeah. Let's see here.
Yeah, well, financial aid hold is more realistic, but
Yeah, I don't think that is at this point, but that wouldn't be a difficult one to add. That's there you go. There's a perfect example of how user voice would benefit that. So basically, I could make that late media email an editable template, just like I do with my confirmations and all this other stuff, right?
Okay. Well, I think I'm out of questions now. Somebody else wants a turn.
Okay, those are great questions. And put that one in user voice. I think that would be a nice one. Yeah, I don't see it anywhere, so I guess the answer is no at this point. Okay, any other questions? Okay, and if you don't have it, let me just make sure you all know that if you want to ask questions or you see something not working right or you're curious how something works, just email it support, S-U-P-P-O-R-T, at AccuTrack.org. That's AccuTrack.org. And, I do these webinars, but I'm also the primary support guy, so I'd be helping you with that. And, just give us a call here. I'm more than happy to help you all.
Thank you.
Okay, and I appreciate your time. Thank you all. Bye.
Maybe I just X out of it. Oh, yeah, okay. That was easy. How do I get in here? Let's just X out of it. Okay, genius.